Hi, this is Angie, and this is another edition of DIY Homesteading from Missouri River Regional Library. This month, we are going to do something a little different. Instead of me showing you how to make something or pretending to be an expert at something, I am actually going to the experts. So Margo and Charles are patrons at Missouri River Regional Library, and they happen to be homesteaders. They are living off-grid in a geodesic dome in Hindley, Missouri. And I asked Margo and Charles if they would mind sharing their knowledge about homesteading and living off-grid with you guys. And they said yes. And unfortunately, with COVID and the weather and our schedules, we were not able to get together. But I did send them some questions, and they answered our questions and then sent me videos back of their homestead and lots of different information they have. So that's what our program tonight is going to be. And I am so grateful for Charles and Margo for participating and sharing their home with us.
This is Charles.
And I'm Margo.
And this is our homestead.
Liebergen. Welcome to our homestead. We're going to talk to you a little bit about homesteading and living off-grid.
Don't do it unless you're crazy.
and even if you're not completely crazy, it's okay.
If you're crazy.
Yeah, you kind of got to be a little crazy. Good morning. I am Margo Jakobi. This is my partner, Charles the Buds. And we are going to answer a few questions about homesteading and living off-grid. Honey, what interested you in living off-grid and homesteading?
Books I read as a child, mostly, were my first introduction to the concept of getting away from the city. Hatchet, and My Side of the Mountain, by the Great Horn Spoon, a variety of young adventure texts where they showed the protagonist escaping or surviving civilization and going into the wild and being able to succeed there and get what they need there without having to argue or compromise with people who have their best interests in heart.
Okay.
Margo?
Well,
are we going to do this all you
sure.
ask me and then?
Yeah, I guess homesteading for me is because I really love nature and the spaciousness of being in the woods and having neighbors, but they not be too close, and just feeling more connected with the outdoors and nature and plants and trees, just being surrounded by all the things that I love. You can have some of that in town, but not on the same level as you have when you are homesteading out in the country and the woods.
Margo, is this your first homestead?
No, Charles, this is my third homestead. You know what they say, 3 times the charm. And yeah, so this is where I'm at, and this is where I will stay. I love this homestead. The first time around, I homesteaded with some friends, and that was a short-term homesteading, but it gave me a taste of what homesteading was like. And then I did it again, and we had electricity. This time we're completely off-grid, and I like it. I don't miss living in town, and I don't miss having electricity 24/7. Because it's pretty easy to live without it. What do you think, Charles?
This is my first homestead.
Yes? And how do you like it?
It's therapeutic.
Yeah.
It allows me to structure my health into my life because there's a variety of physical tasks that require doing, and by doing those physical exercises, my body is stronger and healthier than if I was just sitting on the couch watching TV. Margo, what are your biggest joys of living off-grid and homesteading?
My biggest joys is being surrounded by nature and the birds and listening to the birds. I love hearing the whippoorwill and the owls and the coyotes, and when the bluebirds come flying in, I know what their sound is. They sound like the little tricorders from Star Trek. So that's how I know they're coming in to eat, and I know what the blue jays sound like, and the hawks when they're flying overhead, and yeah, those are the main birds that make birding. Oh, the Carolina wren. They're very busy birds. So all of them have their own little joy that they bring with them. That's my favorite part. Being liberated. Freedom. Yeah. Okay.
That was good. I liked it. You only touched on your joys.
Yeah. So you're going to tell me yours?
Oh, sure. I also thoroughly enjoy the therapeutic nature of the green space that we're in. The birds and the leaves and the trees. I super enjoy going for a walk through the forest every day, every couple days, depending on time that I have. It feels like I never walked the same way twice, even though I know that I have to have been there before. I see new things almost every time. From spring to fall, I'm finding mushrooms, and mushrooms I've seen before, mushrooms I've never seen before.
We do a lot of plant identification. We find lots of neat things that we identify and figure out what they are.
That I've never seen in town.
That's right. On one corner of our property, we have a beautiful, it's very majestic, in my opinion, red pine forest. It's good sized, and it feels very special. I love that spot.
You live in a geodesic dome that you built. Tell us a bit about that process and what made you decide on the dome.
Well, I used to really like the Earthship homes.
You mean the ones made out of tires?
Yes, and then I found out how much work they were, and I was like, oh, hell no, I'm not doing that. I'm not pounding Missouri soil into tires. That is like crazy hard labor, and you need people to help you with that. And I met Charles, and he was all about geodesic domes, and I was like, I like geodesic domes. They're much nicer. Why don't you tell us, Charles, how you came up with geodesic domes and what made you want to build a geodesic dome out here?
Well, back when I was, 11, 12, 13, I read a National Geographic article on Buckminster Fulmeister. And he was this 1960s, 1970s mathematician, geometer, architect that created the Cloud 9 concept. He showed the hybrid systems of tension and dynamicism. They're called tensilities, something like that. Tensegrities, that's it. Where you have wires holding pipes together into a shape. And the dome shape is the most efficient at giving you space on the inside of it with the minimum of materials for the shape. If you use a flexible integument like we did, you don't have a lot of leftover material like you will if you put in roofing shingles and traditional style roofing. But if you, and it's all buildable with materials and tools that you can get for reasonably cheap. You don't have to have 3 different types of chop saw. You don't have to have a lot of materials that are going to have to be cut and put in place.
You don't need any real special skills or tools. What materials did we use to build this dome? Because we built all of our domes by hand.
One we built out of 3/4 inch stainless steel, galvanized steel EMT conduit with, I want to say, 3/8 bolts, nuts and washers. We used a relatively cheap hydraulic jack press in order to crush the ends of the pipes for structural integrity reasons, and drilled a whole bunch of holes in them.
Yeah, we drilled holes in the ends because that's where the bolts pop through and hold all the pipes together to form
Vertexes.
the vortexes.
We got the design off of domerama.co.uk. Paul Robinson has been putting that site up for years, and you just plug in whichever numbers that you're certain that you care about, whether it's diameter or radius or circumference or floor area, and then it will calculate the rest of the numbers and tell you how big of a dome and how long your struts are going to be, and approximate size of your cover, approximate floor square footage.
And the dome that we live in is currently a 24-inch diameter.
24 foot.
24 foot. And then how tall is it?
16 feet.
So it's very spacious. Even though it's kind of small.
386 square feet.
Yeah, it's you don't feel like you're boxed in. It feels really nice, and it feels kind of like we're living in a spaceship. We live in a spaceship.
Major thing that I like about the dome is that, unlike traditional housing, it's really easy to repair. It's $250 for the greenhouse plastic, and each of the pipes is like $12 each. If anything breaks, you just pull it out, unbolt it, and repair it. You don't even have to worry about nails or screws. Whereas in a traditional house, it's a significant amount of effort to remodel walls, to fix your roofing. It just costs tens of thousands of dollars to do anything in an old house. Yeah.
When we lived in town, the house we lived in had so many issues, and
well, it costs as much as a new house to repair that place.
Yeah, and it had mold, and if we hadn't had the house fire, we would still be there struggling, trying to do the repairs ourselves. This is a lot more liberating, and we've never had to repair any struts out here. Like everything we've made, it's sturdy, it's really strong, and we've been through some really intense winds, and we've never had any issues with, because this dome is sitting on a deck that we built, a very sturdy deck. The deck will probably be here for 100 years, if not longer. So it's, we never, even when the weather's nasty outside, we never stress about it. It's always been very comfortable and secure. This is the dome that we live in. It is covered in greenhouse plastic, and on the inside we have the silver bubble wrap insulation, which I can tell you makes 100% difference in the winter and in the summer. It keeps it cooler in the summer, and it keeps the heat in the winter. We built the porch ourselves. We built everything ourselves because we didn't want to be in debt, and it's a lot of work, it's a lot of money, and it's a lot of time. So if you don't want to do any of those things, then homesteading may not be for you. But if you are willing to do those things, then you will have a very interesting journey in life. So Charles is out there chainsawing some hay for the goats. It's about 11 degrees outside. We had that winter vortex come through. So awesome. And it is 11 degrees outside, but inside of our cabin, I'm heating up water for coffee. My little black cat, Gigi. inside of our dome. It's a gorgeous 70 degrees. So this is my home. This is what it looks like in the morning. The silver stuff that you see is our reflective insulation, which I must say, after last winter without it, makes a huge amount of difference. Highly recommend it. I've got little battery-powered LED lights for color. I do burn candles. I have my solar lamps. I've got my tea, my water on for coffee this morning. We keep our wood. We just haul it in. So this was our very first dome that we had in town when we lived there before our house fire. This is a dedicated workshop. It's just earth floor. We don't have it. We don't have it on a foundation or anything like that. So we are going to be relocating this dome over towards where we keep most of our materials and stuff. But yeah, if you're homesteading, you absolutely have to have a workshop because you're gonna need it. I highly recommend a fire pit if you're going to homestead. You will want a place to sit and relax and be social with your friends and family, and there's no better place than around a fire pit. It's a wonderful space. We just put ours in last year, and I just love it. I spend a lot of time hanging out there. As you can see, we have goats. Now, I highly recommend that you fence them in. We are working towards that. We just have to get it ready now, because otherwise they will run amok and they will muddy up your paths. They will go poop everywhere. There's Vivi, our one-eyed kitty cat. And basically, when the males are old enough and the females start going into heat, I can tell you they make a terrible smell. But goats are fun to watch. They are my husband's project, and I'm incredibly ready to get them partitioned. They're really great at clearing out areas that you need cleared that would take a whole lot longer if you were going to weed eat it. So goats are great. They're like little lawnmowers. Goats need hay in the winter to supplement their foraging. They are ruminant. So you want them to be happy and healthy. You want them to have good hay. We are really fortunate because where we live, we have very good neighbors, and we have a farmer who we're able to buy hay bales from. This is the goat's pen. They're trained. They go in here every day at 3 o'clock. It will be later in the day in the summer. And this is one of 2 gravel pads that were put in by a neighbor. And this pad right here is where our kitchen dome is going to be going. Very excited to have a dome dedicated just for the kitchen, because we've been doing it all either outside on a grill or on a propane burner or in our dome home, which is already kind of crowded with stuff. So 24-foot diameter dome. Very excited. Behind the dome are our compost bins that we made.
Yeah, we've got all the pipes cut, crushed, drilled, and ground, and painted. Yeah, we've got all the bolts, nuts, and washers. Next part is the foundation ring for the edge of the dome, and then we'll get started on that.
And we're going to videotape that too, so that'll be something that we'll be sharing on our Virgin Farm and Homestead page on Facebook. Well, we'll make sure that we have a link for that. This is the second pad that our neighbor put in, and this is where my 16-year-old son's dome is going to be put. And as you can see, we cleared that out, and that's where that's going to go. So we're going to be touching upon a few points that we think are important for homesteading and living off-grid, and one of those is water. One thing we didn't mention is that we've purchased a water gravity well.
Gravity well UV. It has 0.02 micron carbon activated filters that are silver impregnated, and has a UV LED lamp that runs for 15 minutes when you push the button. That will sterilize the bacteria and algae and viruses that manage to get past that filter.
And what kind of water can you use for that?
Pretty much any water you can get into it.
Lake.
We're going to be using water that we collected from rain, and
could you use lake or rain catch?
Yeah, it's just like the life straws. It's better than drinking straight up unfiltered water.
And it's, it takes time to filter it, so you probably want to have some backup water on hand if you have access to, 5-gallon bottles of water that they sell at the store. But this is good to have, especially for emergencies.
For the start, until we are able to move up to a centralized water system.
Okay.
So
when you're homesteading off-grid, you can see here's a water tank. You've got to figure out where you're getting your water. We bring our water in from town. We get the big 5-gallon bottles of water. And we also have a neighbor who lets us fill up our bottles. And we have been doing that until we have money for a well. Wells are not cheap. They're anywhere from $6,500 to $10,000 or $12,000. So a well is not up super high on our priority list. We shower at the YMCA. That's because we don't have plumbing. We don't have but we also shower outside. We bring in our own water, and we will shower outside in the summer. We have a swimming hole in the back here that we started digging, and it helps to have neighbors who operate big machinery like a backhoe, because, we were at that hole for 3 weeks. Then we had our neighbor come in with his backhoe. It took him less than an hour to dig a 8 foot by, 8 foot by 5?
It's 11 feet by 11 feet by 8 foot.
Yeah, and let me tell you, it was worth every single penny to have him just backhoe that hole out for us. So we live off-grid, and we don't have a refrigerator because we don't have electricity, and so when we're out here, we have a cooler. We have an ice cooler. And of course, we have designs to build something a little more efficient, but right now we're just, not in winter, we're not having to buy ice very often, but in the summer, we do spend a chunk of change on ice for what size is our cooler?
That's going to be changing as soon as we buy an ice maker, honey.
Yeah, but again,
we have for the last 2 years. We'll spend a lot on ice. How's that?
Yep.
Because I don't expect to do it this summer.
But you start with where you're at and you move forward. So if you are starting from scratch, you're
Either get used to food that's dry and non-perishable, or be prepared to support your refrigeration habit.
and that means that you need to be organized and know what you're buying, how to store it to keep it from going bad. You're going to throw away a lot of food if you don't. And we have at times. So that's just something to keep in mind for your food storage and food cooling. There's going to be a lot of expenses that hit you that you didn't anticipate, but you won't really know it until you're in it and you're trying to figure out what you're going to do about it. So some things are just going to kind of crop up and you're going to figure it out. But it's a really good idea to have your food, like if you just need to even practice, go camping. Figure out how to take as little as possible to camp and see how that goes. Like, if you live far away from your entrance to where your cabin or whatever your tent that you're living in, and you have to carry everything into your campsite, you're going to, maybe want one of those carts that you can use to pull things in. Or you're going to be making a lot of trips, which is fine. But it's just, there are all kinds of different things that you will have to figure out when you're putting together your homestead. And it's going to be different for everybody because the layout of your property is going to be different, and how far you are from a town or from supply.
So the other practical thing you're going to need as a homesteader is you're going to need shelter. As soon as you get to your property, you're going to need to consider whether you're going to be living in a tent or in a existing structure. There's 4-season tents that they sell that cost like $800, $1,000, and they're good enough to start in. They'll keep you alive. People use them all the way up in Alaska and the North Pole. But if you want something slightly more permanent, then you got to consider what you're going to be responsible for the entire time that you're going to be living there. Because if you're going to buy yourself a cardboard box, a trailer, for, say, $26,000, then you're going to be paying on it for the next 12 years, 10 years, 20 years, whatever. And it's also going to be falling apart the entire time you own it and owe on it. If you build your own structure, say out of logs, that's like the traditional homesteading option that every fantasy that I've ever heard of has for you. It's either logs, mud, or bricks, right? But now, in the space age, we have plastic. So why go with old things that have slow inertial points and massive thermal inertia when we can just use insulation and reflection from metallicized film?
And this is also a good time to bring up that every county is different. Every county has different permits and regulations and building code. So you absolutely have to take the time to check into that and see whatever county you're going to be living in, what those regulations and building codes are, just to see what you can get away with, because some are a lot more lax than others. So some people are like, hey, you can dig a hole in it and pitch a roof over it and you're good to go. I mean, they don't care. Others are a lot more by the book, and they will check on you, and they will want you to do things the way they want them done, even if you're in the middle of the woods. So best not to, do anything that's going to get you fined or cause you trouble down the road. When you live off grid, it really helps if you have a generator. This is the generator that we got. It's pretty affordable. We got this at Menards. We got this like a year ago at least. It works great. It gives us plenty of power. We used it when we were building our deck. And well, actually it's been 2 years now. And it really helps when you live off grid if you have a generator. We do harvest our own firewood because we live on almost 20 acres, so we have plenty of wood, freestanding dead wood to utilize. So it saves us a lot of money if we can do the wood ourselves. We live off of grid completely. That means no electricity. So I buy these inflatable solar Lucy lights outdoors. I highly recommend them. They're wonderful. Over time, the straps might break. It just depends. I hang them up. I have these strings on them because I hang them up over my dining room table. So when it's evening time, I have more than just candlelight. They're very nice and bright, and they've been great. And I can tell you it makes a big difference because the first year we were out here camping and clearing, when it gets dark, that's it. And all I had were my headlamps that I wear on my head, and it gets a little depressing when you don't have any artificial light, unless you're willing to just go to bed when it's dark. And I did that a lot. But it's completely different from living in the city when you have electricity to clock into. So this is at the entrance of our property, for the most part, that leads down to where we live. We paid to put this road in with creek gravel from a nearby farmer who hauls, and he hauled this and spread it out. And you obviously, if you live in the woods, you're going to have to consider your road and how you're going to get in and out, and it gets really muddy when it rains and stuff, especially in the spring. So it makes it really hard to get in and out with your vehicles if you don't have traction, if you don't have the gravel down. So you have to take that into account. This area is where we're going to have this cleared out. I'm probably going to use the goats for a good portion of it. And those trees, some of them are going to be cleared out. None of the big oaks here, but some of these other trees, because we're putting in garden, food forests, flowers. And over here, this is more of our entrance. So this side's going to be cleared out, and we're going to put parking over here.
Firearms and guns. We've come to believe that when you are the deciding agent for your reality, you have the need to protect yourself and your property.
Yeah.
There have not been any personal examples in this area, but there's other people who have lost property in our neck of the woods from, they like to say meth users, but who knows? It's a stereotype.
It's just people who are looking for opportunity. They're opportunistic thieves. And whatever their story is, there are people who will look for places where they can go and steal things. And, nobody's ever bothered us personally. But there are stray animals, and you also have to be aware of rabid animals. That does happen. It's a good idea to have firearms, especially when you're homesteading. A lot of people are hunters. My husband hunts. It's good to have firearms for these things. So we have firearms, and we recommend that if you are going to homestead, and especially if you're in a very rural area, you might really want to consider having, maybe taking some gun safety classes if you don't know how to handle firearms, or practice with somebody who does know how to handle firearms, and get a gun safe. We have a gun safe because, it's important to have, to do it right, and to make sure that you don't just have guns available if you're not home and somebody can just break into your place and steal your firearms. That's not great either. So, yep. So being armed is actually very useful if you're homesteading.
What have I learned that I wished I knew before I started this journey? Nothing. I already knew all this.
You can't really, you do a lot of learning as you go.
I haven't learned a whole lot. This is all known stuff.
Well,
You need food, you need water, you need dishes cleaned, you need a place to sleep that's dry and clean, you need a place to keep your clothes dry and clean.
You need to have a way to watch a lot of internet, YouTube videos, because
There are things you're not going to know. That's true.
it will help you a lot. And almost anything you need to learn, you can learn at the library, or you can learn online, finding it through other people's websites, but especially YouTube. YouTube has the most wonderful tutorials on how to do things, and there's a lot of really great homesteading videos on it. There's also a lot of great homesteading groups on Facebook, so I would recommend researching that.
If someone wants to start the process of homesteading but can't right now, what are some small things that you would recommend they start with? Principles of self-sufficiency. Instead of buying crap at the store that's in the middle of the store, buy the real food that's on the edge of the grocery store, and make your own processed food. Make your own stews, make your own chilies, make your own soups, make your own fried chicken, make your own meatballs.
Yeah, learn how to feed yourself, because you're not going to be able to run to someplace in town when you're tired and hungry.
And an hour of driving ahead of you before you can get anywhere.
So you have to have a nice food stash that's really easy for the days when your brain has just stopped working, like the black chin ramen or sardines, or you need little things like that to get you through. Hot teas. You need to know how to feed yourself.
Yeah, hot tea is super important in winter. And during summer, electrolytes. You need to have some sort of Haymaker's lemonade. Something that will get electrolytes in your body, otherwise you're going to kill yourself as soon as you start sweating.
And you want to have those cooling rags, because when you're out there doing hard work, those really help keep you from overheating.
As soon as you have a source of well water, you'll be able to give yourself cold showers during the summer.
Yeah. You could possibly dig a little pond, or get one of those little inflatable hot tubs and just fill that with water. That's a pretty cheap and easy way to do it. I would say that if you want to homestead but you're not able to do it right at the moment, put money away. You're going to need it. You're going to need a lot of money. And you're going to need a chainsaw. You're going to need tools, shovels, just all kinds of little things.
Tobacco.
Well, yeah, or have a neighbor who's got a backhoe will do the work.
It is so much faster with a backhoe.
Yeah. Yes, dear.
Do you have any tips for those interested in homesteading?
Well, don't overthink it. Don't underthink it. If it's what your heart desires, you should definitely go for it. It's going to be a lot of work, and it's also going to be a lot of joy. There's going to be a lot of reward in doing it, but you're going to have your ups and downs. And don't get discouraged when you have your downs, because every wonderful thing that we've ever experienced out here, I think, has been worth everything that's been hard figuring out or moving towards what it is that we're wanting. Sometimes it just takes time. Sometimes it just takes money. Sometimes there's a big gap between what you want and where you are, and in between you need time and money and a plan to get there. That can take some time for that to fall into place, so don't get discouraged and
learn how to dress appropriately for the new conditions. Be used to being outside, if you're a man, in all weathers. Because there's things that need to be done at all times of the year.
Yeah.
Winter, summer, spring, fall. Enjoy nature.
Anyway, have money for the things that you're going to need. You're going to need chainsaw. You're going to need the chainsaw chaps, because I guarantee you, if you go around chainsawing without the gear that you need with that, accidents happen.
That's suicide.
He had a pair of chaps on, and what would have happened that day if you had not been wearing those chaps?
I'd probably be missing my anterior support for my knee.
And he's very careful when he's out there chainsawing, but you can't just assume that...
If you're doing anything for too long, you're going to slip up.
Yeah.
You're going to make mistakes.
Understand how to use the tools you're using. You never put a chainsaw up over your head. I mean, there's just things like that. Watch YouTube videos and learn tutorials about things. Like, some of it's common sense. Other things you're not going to really maybe know because you've never done it before. Take the time to do a lot of research. If you go into research mode, it will save you a lot of trouble in the long run. Yeah. Yep. Research. Do a lot of it, because you're going to be doing a lot of it regardless. So you might as well get a head start, take notes, decide what you want, what are the things that are really important to you, start putting money away, because you're going to be spending a lot of money homesteading. It's not cheap.
You're going to be spending a lot of money
You're
matter where
absolutely.
you are. How's that a different argument?
Well, the difference is that in the long run, you're going to have something that is wonderful and that you own. If you live in town and rent, you could sink all your money into overhead and just living expenses. But if you have a little bit of money saved up before you start homesteading, it will give you a bigger push on some of your bigger projects. Otherwise, you have to wait until you get paid, and that can make it take a little longer. That's what we've done, so that we're not in debt, per se. Yep. But if you're doing this with another person, you have to have patience, because there is a lot of stress involved. You may be talking, you guys may be thinking you're talking about the same thing, but you may be having a completely different idea than the other person on how to go about doing it. You're going to hit a lot of walls. Even when you think you're communicating clearly, you have to have some patience and some grace with the person that you're working and building a homestead with, because it can make you want to rip out your hair and walk away from it all if you don't realize that things take time, and sometimes you definitely have to be flexible and listen to the other person and why they want to do something completely different than what you want to do. And so, yeah, there's a definite balancing act to homesteading with a partner, and I think it's worth it if you can just, realize and recognize that not everything is, you're not going to have a great day every single day regarding any of your projects, But as you start seeing things come together, there is absolutely no place I would rather be than living here in the woods, surrounded by nature, and doing what I'm doing here, because it's incredible. There's absolutely no comparison. I've lived in towns most of my life, and this feels like freedom. This feels like liberation from oppressive overhead. Not to say that you're not going to continue spending all your money on projects at your homestead, but it's different. There's something completely different about doing that versus paying a landlord. So when you're cutting down trees and you're clearing areas, you absolutely have to have a good chainsaw. You are going to spend time clearing unless you have the money to pay someone else to do it for you. So there are tools that are incredibly important to have. And if you live in the woods, which is where most people live in their homesteading, not everyone, you can homestead in town, I suppose, if you do it right. Yes, Vivi, I know, you want to go for a walk. She's our outdoor nature cat. Anyways, you're going to spend a lot of your time figuring out the hierarchy of your projects and what you're going to be spending your time doing. What is the most pressing? Things can come in all the time that suddenly need all of your attention. And so that's what you're going to spend your time doing. Like right here, this is where the gravel stopped for our road, and it's a muddy spot because we have a turnaround here. So eventually we're going to have to get that graveled, or something put on it so that we can not get stuck in the mud. A lot of times you're going to see things that come up that you didn't even know was an issue until you're right in it. And mainly you just have to have a really good attitude, because there's always going to be things coming up and taking your attention, taking your money, taking your time. And if you can laugh and just go with the flow, your life is going to be a lot better as you do a lot of hard work homesteading, because homesteading is not, it's not easy, it's not impossible, and I think it's incredibly rewarding. So just some more truths there for you. There's just there's so much that goes into it, because it's not like a regular household. It's a little more challenging in some ways, and a little more liberating in other ways. So you just have to really be able to kind of go with the flow of it and not get too stressed out about things, because there's always going to be something. Like, always. You're going to always have a project. You're always going to have a situation. You're always going to have something that comes along and that is vying for your attention. So the better you are at being flexible and problem solving and just being organized, gosh, that helps so much. If you're homesteading with another person or people, it's really important to have good communication. If you find yourself having verbal miscommunications, you could have a notebook and you could write things out in the notebook, and then everybody just makes comments that way to keep it from getting charged. There's just all kinds of things that can go right and that can go wrong. Make sure you have enough firewood, because if you're using a wood-burning stove and whatever it is that you're using, you've got to have certain things like that hammered out. You've got to know how you're going to stay warm. And in the summer, you're going to be hot. And you're going to deal with bugs. A lot of bugs. And mosquitoes. And ticks. And there's so many different things that you're gonna learn about. And you're going to become stronger. And you're going to have times when you just cry and wonder what the hell you're doing. And other times you're just going to feel like you're on top of the world and you are clear and you know what's going on. It's going to ebb and flow. And I think the biggest thing is to just keep moving forward and find ways to do things that bring you joy. Whether it's a walk in the woods, sitting down and playing a game of cards with your loved ones or your friends, sitting around a campfire, just finding ways to take care of yourself and to know that this is your dream and you can do it, and you just gotta just keep yourself in the spirit of what you're pioneering. You're doing something that a lot of people will look at you and go, I could never do that. Well, who cares if they can't do it? It's not about them. It's about you and what you're willing to do. And you're going to find that despite some of the things that you will give up, which are some creature comforts, especially starting out, you can do more than you think you can do. And you will become stronger because of the physical activity. You'll become healthier. I'm in great shape, and I'm 51 years old. I'm going to be 52 in May. I'm in better shape than I've probably been in my younger years. So if you're feeling weak and you just feel like you need to get your endurance up, run around in the woods for an hour every day, or go dig a hole. I guarantee you, after a week of digging a hole every other day, within 2 weeks, you are going to feel amazing. So, but look, if this is your dream, you go for it, because nobody's going to do it for you. You have to have the gumption and the motivation to do what it takes to make your dreams come true. And it's not horrible. There's going to be times when you're like, I could do without this or that, but it just makes you more determined to find ways to make it work. And those days that work, they get more and more and more, and they build up momentum to where it's mostly working. Those days are magic. I mean, there's nothing better than sitting on your land and having your life the way that you've created it, the way that you want it to be. That's what it's all about, and that's the dream. So go live your dream. So Charles, what is your overarching vision for our homestead? Our homestead is called Virgin, and you also do woodworking, but what is it that you envision? Some of the things that you want to do, some of the big things.
Okay. I want to use regenerative agriculture to create proteins and veggies to eat. I want to grow veggies that will produce fiber, feed, and seed and oil that will allow us to produce our own diesel on site, produce our own cooking oils on site. Let's see, food on site. I expect to be smoking and curing our proteins Smoking is something we can do with hickory or with cherry wood. And once you smoke something, you no longer have to freeze it in order to keep it good. Because curing will keep things good for years. Let's see. After the sustainable regenerative stuff is more in place and we have a food supply that's not costing us time and money to go and get from town, I'm hoping to expand the community here and to have a full-time chef, a full-time masseuse, well, seriously, hard labor.
You're sore.
And
you will be sore.
I'm healthy. I'm 6 foot tall, 230 pounds, mostly muscle, little bit of fat, a lot less fat than most men my age in the United States. But still, it's effort, and a masseuse would be so nice. And then, on top of that, there's the artisanal and crafting stuff, because I have observed in our community and our society that there's a lack of personal responsibility in people. They expect other people to take care of them. It's ridiculous.
We want to work for ourselves. I
want everyone who's here to be working for themselves, but also benefiting the community that we're in. I want good food 24/7. I want hot and cold running massages. I want...
Not hot and cold running water.
That's part of it, but still.
Yeah, it does. It's really nice to... Your muscles get so sore.
And if
homesteading.
we're on the new Katy Trail bike path, so within the next 5-10 years, they're supposed to have a parade of people on bikes just riding by every day.
We'd like to be a part of,
I'd like to be able to feed them good food.
Yeah.
I'd like to have a place for them to stay for the night and to then leave during the day. And let's see. When those things aren't happening, woodworking, blacksmithing, general 3D printing, just whatever craft is needed to get something fun done. You? What are your future plans?
Oh, for Bergen. Well, I plan to have native plants besides what's already growing here originally. All over the landscape, tucked in all over the place. And I plan on having a bloomscape put in with just millions of flowers to enjoy. And I plan on having several studios up to work in and create my own value-added products from things that we're either growing here on the property or things that I'm making through creative, artistic vision. I also want a space for entertaining and just enjoying people's, just their company, especially with, the way it's been the last couple of years.
Looks at me.
Well, no. I mean, like with COVID.
Been with me for the last couple of years. So,
yes.
yeah.
Well,
he's social interaction besides me. I get that.
He's more introverted. I'm a little more extroverted, but
I'm technical.
He's very sociable, but you're very sociable, but not. I mean, that's with anything. You want to be sociable when you're ready to be sociable. And we're just kind of laying the groundwork to have the things in place so when we're feeling social, we have social things going on. And when we're feeling like we want to do woodworking or art or writing or whatever that is that we're doing, we also want to have ways to show other people hands-on how to do things here. So workshops and other DIY things will be going on. And so right now we're just kind of like moving towards that. And that's, yeah. basically that in a nutshell.
So I hope you've enjoyed this program on DIY homesteading with real homesteaders, Charles and Margo. I think they had a lot of information to share with us, and I am so grateful that they did. So thank you again. Margo has agreed that if you guys have questions, you can send them to me, and we can compile a question and answer session that will expand on this video and give you even more information about living off grid, geodesic domes, homesteading, anything you want to know about. So send your questions to me. My email is baynea@mrrl.org, baynea@merle.org. You can also just drop me a line through this video and I'll check the comments. So if you have any questions, let us know. And I hope you really enjoyed this very special edition of DIY Homesteading with Missouri River Regional Library.